All right, hello everyone. Eric Marks, findingmiddle-earth.com, and welcome to another weekly Instagram photo critique. So I have a couple of good photos here for you guys today, and then of course, like always, we have the last photo, which is going to be kind of my featured photo, where I think it's just like completely flawless and a brilliant photo. So that will be fun to look at as well. So before we get started, if you guys are interested, I have a free 45-minute video covering all of my landscape photography gear, my bags, the stuff inside and outside of my bag. If you guys are interested in that for free, just head on over to my website, click the big subscribe button in the top right, shoot your email address in the box, and you'll be good to go. If you guys want to find out how you can get involved in the critiques, if you want your photos critiqued, you basically just post a photo on Instagram and then use my hashtag FMEcritique, and that will put you in the pool of photos for me to choose from. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So this first photo here, immediately when I look at it, there's certain photos, like right when I look at them, I know that there's so much potential there. And even though it doesn't look like it, I can just see the potential in terms of post-processing, okay? So right when I look at the photo, I can tell it's obviously blue hour, right? It's a nice blue hour. There's some nice clouds in the sky. Well, it's either blue hour or maybe it might even be that this is just before sunrise. I'm not sure because the lights are still on here, you can see. So it's either about to get dark or about to get bright. Either way, I'm having trouble on this one figuring out what the main subject should be. Whether you're a viewer or a photographer, typically when you look at a photograph, you're thinking to yourself, oh, okay, I see what the photographer is trying to get me to look at here, right? You typically understand what the subject matter of the shot is and what the photographer is trying to emphasize in that photo. Here, I can't really tell, you know, the first thing that I see in this photo are these little wooden structures here. Let me put my opacity back up on my brush. These little wooden structures here and right here. Okay, so those are just kind of the first thing that comes to my eye. Maybe because the water is extremely bright, and so my eye kind of gets drawn to that brightness, and then it immediately gets kind of distracted by the contrast of those wooden structures. Now, as soon as I look at these wooden structures, I start to notice the great sky. I mean, it really is. You can tell he probably shot this with an ND filter because you can see the streaks in the clouds. There's streaks all throughout these clouds. There's nice little you know, these great little streaking patterns all throughout the clouds, here, 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 and they're all just drawing your eye into the sky. So I love the streaking patterns are great. Those are, you know, perfect use of leading lines in the sky, perfect use of an ND filter, and the sky was nice. As far as the overall exposure, I think the exposure is nice as well. Sorry for that. Let me get rid of all this stuff so we can start getting into the photo. Yeah, so I think the exposure is nice. I just don't know from like right here, the middle of the photo downward, I don't know what to think of it. I don't know what the subject matter should be. I'm not sure how much of the foreground should be there. Let me kind of give you an idea of what I'm looking at. So there's this little log sticking out of the ground here. There's kind of a bigger rock right here. And then, of course, you have these two wooden structures here and here. So there's kind of four definite elements there that are making up the foreground. And then around that, there's a lot of little distraction, you know, all throughout here and here. And I don't really know where my eye should go from foreground to middle ground in order to make myself go to the clouds. Because I think, looking at this, the clouds are kind of the main show here. I think the clouds are what the photographer is probably wanting us to look at because the sky looked like it had some nice color in it. Maybe some of that color isn't coming through on the post-processing. And then I think just the clouds and exposure of the sky overall was just very nice. So let me show you just quickly, and this isn't going to be a post-processing tutorial, so I'm not going to like go over everything I'm doing, but let me show you how quickly that this photo could have been made from like a 4 stars out of 10 to like an 8 stars out of 10, or like a 6 or 7, okay? Let me show you what I would do. So I'm going to open up a color balancer here. I'm going to bias the colors through here. Let me tell you why I'm doing this real quick. I'm adding some colors to this like this because all this little moss and little bits of grass and seaweed or whatever that's kind of growing all over these black rocks, I know that there was more color there in person. It just probably didn't come across on the photo. So we need to separate that color. It's called color separation. We need to separate that color from the black rock so that it really gives some emphasis to the foreground and gives some interest there. So I'm going to click on the mask. I'm going to invert the mask, go back to my brush. We're going to change my brush back to a very little soft brush. I'm going to take the opacity down and the flow down. Okay, so watch this. I'm going to start painting that color in on the moss and the seaweed. And I'm just going to do this quickly. This isn't a post-processing tutorial by any means. I'm just going to show you how this photo had so much potential if it were, just played with a little more in post-processing. To just add some color back into the moss and the seaweed in the foreground here to really separate that color from the jet black rocks, or the kind of, bluish black rocks. So the more I paint that in, the more you can see it's really giving some interest to the foreground. It's really separating all of this from the rocks. I'm trying to get all of the little cracks in the rocks where the moss is growing. It's really starting to draw my eye to the foreground first, because now there's some color in there. The eye typically gets drawn first to really bright spots and to color. That's just typically what happens by default with your eyes when you're looking at a photo. You get drawn to the most colorful portions of the scene or the brightest portions of the scene. And that can be good or bad. So we can take that information, the bright spots and the colorful spots, we can take it and we can use it strategically when we're post-processing our photos. Okay, so there's a little bit more I could do, but let's just show you that on and off real quick. So I'm going to flick that off and on. Look at the little lift that gave to the foreground. I mean, that's really, really nice. By the way, a lot of this stuff is what I'm going to be covering in my landscape photography post-processing tutorial that I'm going to be releasing very soon. A lot of this stuff really in depth I'm going to be covering on how to separate your colors and draw the eye in. So look at that. That is just a huge difference. So I'm going to tone that down a little bit on the opacity. Okay, and then we'll start to work just a little bit on the mountain back here. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but just look at the color we're bringing back into this. Okay, we could have probably done some of this as well with the dehaze tool, but I'm just kind of bringing some life back into the foliage and the greens in the image, because now it's starting to give it dimension. It's starting to really make it stand out from the blue sky, so that we understand how blue and beautiful and rich the sky is. Before, the whole image was just blue, right? There was no color. It was just blue, and then there were those lights in the background. And so we didn't really understand how much of a beautiful blue the sky was. But now that we have some greens and some golden tones in the image, now we're starting to understand, oh, wow, look at the contrast between the green foreground, the blue water in the midground, the distant mountain green, and then the blue sky. It really starts to emphasize that blue hour. Look at this. I'm going to turn it off again. So off, everything is blue, and on. Now there's some dimension and some color separation. Okay, so look at that. It's awesome. Now, let's just duplicate this layer for a second, the base layer. I'm going to go into Camera Raw. I'm going to turn up some Kelvin into the warm values, and I'm going to go to, where am I going here? I don't even know where I'm, there we go, effects. I'm trying to go to the dehaze. Add some dehaze in here. Okay, just a little bit, and then we'll hit OK. And then I'm going to create a mask on this. I'm going to invert this as well. Go back to my brush. All right, and we're going to start doing a little bit more. So we're going to start painting over the whole foreground. Okay, and see, it's warming up the painting that we've already done. And I'm just going to emphasize a little more in the foreground, a little more in the midground here. Okay, just a little bit. Really start to emphasize some of the warmer tones. And then, of course, we'll do a quick little streak over the sky. Not too much, but just a little bit to kind of bring out the clouds and separate that from the blue. Okay, so look what we've done. I'm just going to stop here. Look what we've done to this image. I mean, it is just fantastic. So here is the starting image, okay? Then we did the color balancing here to bring out the color tones in the foreground, midground, and then we just kind of finished it up with a little bit extra little pop. Okay, and you can always blend this in with the opacity and in different amounts, but look at that. It is just, it's unbelievable. So again, I think the photo was great. I think the technical stuff was great. I don't see any like really big distractions in the image. Now that we've fixed this, I think the use of the ND filter, or at least the long exposure, was really nicely done. But with post-processing, you can really bring your photo back to life, because when you shoot in RAW, it just kind of makes everything flat. So keep that in mind. Even in the film days, they processed their film. So yeah, this is very well done. Thank you so much for submitting the photo. I think this just changed the photo completely and made it so much nicer. So keep that in mind. Some post-processing will never hurt to add some extra detail and dimension to your photo. Okay, the next photo. I thought this would be kind of fun. I threw one of my photos in here. So I don't want any of you guys to ever get the idea that I'm like critiquing your photo because like I'm this master photographer that never messes up. The reason why I like doing photo critiques is because I run into all the same problems and struggles that you guys do. So I wanted to critique one of my photos in this one and show you why I never posted this or even worked on this. So I was walking along the beach simply, okay, and I saw this puddle with all these really cool textures and patterns in front of me. And I thought, man, I got to slap on my wide angle lens. I have to emphasize this cool pattern, this cool little puddle in the sand, and then I have this great sunset. This is going to be a 5-star image. I'm going to make millions of dollars selling this print. It's going to be amazing. And you know, some of those things, some of that like excitement, you know, gets you in the field. You're like, man, this is going to be great. And then I came back and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the worst photo I've ever seen in my life. So I don't like anything about this photo. I think that I did an absolute terrible job capturing this. So this is a prime example of something looking fantastic in person, but looks terrible on camera. So all of this foreground here, let me shrink my brush back and turn the hardness up so I can show you, so I can illustrate this for you guys. Okay, so all of this foreground, all right, all of this stuff here, there was all these cool little patterns and textures everywhere when I was there in person. It just looked so cool to look at. But on camera, it just didn't pick up as well. It's just, I mean, you can just see it. It just looks like a big puddle. But you can see why I thought it was cool. The beach and the ocean is over here, and then there was a bunch of sand, and then there was a big little puddle over here because the tide was coming in. So it was cool, again, to look at, not so cool on camera. The clouds were okay. You know, there was a nice little sunset. It was a beautiful night to walk on the beach, just not a good photo. The first thing wrong with the photo is I put way too much emphasis on the foreground and midground. I mean, that makes up more than 2/3 of the entire image. All of this is just terrible, okay? And then I just gave a little sliver of the sky. You can see there's just a tiny little bit of the sky in here with the sun. And the clouds were way better than that little portion. So I really should have shown more of the sky and found a better foreground. But there just wasn't a good photo to be made that night from the location I was at. It's just as simple as that. But sometimes we take them anyway because this is the age of digital, so why not? You know, you can take as many photos as you want because you'll learn a lot about it. You know, you'll learn. I learned after this that I was like, man, what did I do wrong? This is just terrible. And really, it was just one of those things where it doesn't look good in person or it doesn't look good on camera, but it looked great in person. So, you know, these two little seashells were interesting. I was trying to think of how to lead the eye out. There was another tiny little shell over here. It's just with a wide angle lens, the wide angle lens, of course, kind of pushes everything more distant in the background. And so it just did not work. So I don't like anything about this photo. I think it's absolutely horrible. It's probably the worst photo I have had on to date on my critiques. That's why I wanted to show you guys this, because I don't critique your photos because I think I'm perfect. I critique because I think it all helps us get a different perspective on our photos. So yeah, this is mine. I took this about 1.5 years ago, and I think it's absolutely dreadful. So there you go. Okay, so now to the last photo. This one I think is just brilliant in every way. I think it's absolutely a 10-star, just great portfolio shot. You could sell prints of it. I love it. So let me go on to that one. I'll go ahead and put this person's Instagram account up as well. I love this. I love the simplicity, yet the complexity to it. Now let me kind of explain. So most people would look at this and just think, wow, what a very pleasing image. It's got the great blue tones in the sky, very pleasing blues. It's not those dark ink color blues. It's got, you can actually see the sunball behind the tree. And it's actually wrapping around, the golden tones are wrapping around the tree, and then backlighting all the blades of grass. So it's a very simple composition, but very powerful. Let me tell you why it's also a little complex, if your eye can understand it. Let's look at the shape of the shadow. So I'm going to draw a line around this shape here, okay? Let's draw this line here and here. So what you're honestly seeing here is you're seeing the tree here, right? This is the tree trunk right here, and then this is all the tree. What we're seeing down here is the exact same tree, the shadow of it laid out on the ground, coming to the camera as a foreground. Brilliant, just a brilliant use of the light. You can see the golden tones all here are wrapping around the tree because the tree is still creating a big shadow leading all the way up to the camera. But the reason why all these tiny little blades are backlit is because the little pockets of light are escaping through the tree branches, and they're shooting down this little walkway, and they're backlighting all these little blades of grass. So again, brilliant job, very well done on this one. I really, really like this one. So yeah, I think you could license this one. I think you could sell prints. It's just great. It actually reminds me, I don't know how many people have seen the movie The Shawshank Redemption. This reminds me of one of the last scenes in The Shawshank Redemption where the guy goes under the big oak tree and finds the note that Andy left for the guy. So if you've ever seen that movie, this reminds me of that. But it's just brilliant image, job well done. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next one. If you would like to stay up to date on all of my photography videos and free tutorials, please consider subscribing by clicking on my face. And if you would like to find out more about me and how to improve your photography, visit my website at findingmiddleearth.com.